The landlord called me the morning after my wife's funeral. His voice was low, careful, like he was afraid of the walls listening. "You need to come by," he said. "There's something I was told never to show you." Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "And whatever you do, don't tell your daughter." I was still wearing yesterday's grief. The house smelled like wilted flowers and cold tea, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears. My daughter, Amara, slept on the couch with her shoes still on, one arm curled around her mother's scarf. She hadn't cried since the burial. Not a tear, just silence, heavy, watchful silence that made me feel like I was failing her in some invisible way. I stepped outside to take the call, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. "What is this about?" I asked. He paused. "Too long. Your wife asked me to promise something. Years ago. I thought you already knew." I didn't. The drive across town felt unreal, like the world had shifted half an inch to the left and never corrected itself. Every red light reminded me she wasn't in the passenger seat anymore, tapping her fingers against the dashboard when she was nervous. Every billboard felt too loud. We'd been married 16 years. Not perfect, but solid. Or at least, that's what I told myself when people asked. She was private, yes. Protective of certain things. She liked control. But she loved our daughter fiercely, and she loved me in the quiet ways, remembering how I took my coffee, folding my shirts just so. Trust grows in routines like that. The building was one of those old apartment blocks that smelled faintly of dust and old paint. The landlord, Mr. Hargreave, met me at the door. He wouldn't look me in the eye. "She rented a storage unit in the basement," he said as we walked. "Paid cash, renewed it every year." I frowned. "That's not possible. We share finances." She paid me separately. That was the first real crack. Not a shatter, just a thin line, running through something I thought was unbreakable. The basement lights flickered on, buzzing weakly. The air was colder down there, damp. He stopped in front of a narrow metal door with a faded number stenciled on it. "She told me," he said, swallowing, "that if anything ever happened to her, I was to show this to you. But only after the funeral. And only if you came alone." My chest tightened. "Why?" He hesitated. "She said you'd understand, eventually." He unlocked the door and stepped back, like he didn't want to be part of what came next. Inside wasn't what I expected. No boxes of old clothes. No forgotten furniture. Just a single wooden desk. A small filing cabinet. And on the desk, a framed photo. It was of my daughter. Taken years ago. Younger. Standing in front of a house I didn't recognize. I felt my mouth go dry. "What is this?" I whispered. "Mr. Hargreave cleared his throat. She was very specific. You're to go through it slowly. And," he looked genuinely afraid now, "please don't involve your daughter yet. She wanted to tell her herself. When the time was right." Then he left me there. Alone. I sat at the desk, my legs weak. The chair creaked under my weight. In the drawer, there were folders, neatly labeled. Dates, names, some familiar, some not. I didn't open them. Not yet. Instead, my mind went somewhere else entirely. To Daniel. Daniel had been my best friend since college. He stood beside me at my wedding. He held my shoulder while I broke down at the graveside yesterday. He was the one who brought soup last night and stayed until Amara fell asleep, telling her stories about her mother that made her smile despite herself. "Your mom was the bravest person I ever knew," he'd said softly. At the time, it comforted me. Now, sitting in that basement, the words echoed differently. There were small things I'd ignored over the years. Daniel showing up unannounced. My wife tensing when she heard his voice. The way conversation stopped when I entered the room. How he always insisted on driving Amara to school whenever he visited. I told myself it was loyalty. Care. I told myself a lot of things. I opened the filing cabinet. Inside were envelopes. Letters never sent. Some addressed to me. Some to Amara. All in my wife's handwriting. The first one I pulled out wasn't sealed. "If you're reading this," it began, "then I've failed to keep the truth buried." My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. She wrote about fear. About mistakes made long before I ever met her. About promises extracted in moments of weakness. She wrote about protection. Hers, and mine, and especially our daughter's. One line burned into me. "There are people you trust who should never be alone with her." My hands trembled. I thought of Daniel's arm around Amara's shoulders yesterday. The way she leaned into him without hesitation. I shut the letter, my chest tight, and forced myself to breathe. I wasn't ready. Not yet. I left the storage unit exactly as I'd found it. Locked the door. Thanked the landlord with a numb voice. Promised I wouldn't return without calling first. The sun felt too bright when I stepped outside. That evening, Daniel called. Just checking in, he said. You holding up? I looked at Amara across the room, quietly drawing, her mother's scarf draped over the back of the chair. Yeah, I lied. Just tired. There was a pause. Subtle. Calculated. Listen, he said gently, I can come by tomorrow. Help sort through your wife's things. Take some pressure off. My stomach dropped. In the background, I heard him inhale, like he was bracing for something. I thought of the storage unit. The letters. The warning. Sure, I said, my voice steady despite the fear crawling up my spine. That would be great. After we hung up, I stood very still, watching my daughter hum softly to herself. And for the first time since Daniel arrived the next morning with coffee and that familiar, careful smile, the one that always made people trust him without thinking twice. He moved through my house like he belonged there, setting the cups down, lowering his voice when Amara walked past, asking how I slept as if the answer mattered. I watched him closely now. Too closely. Grief sharpens some senses. It dulls others. But that day, every small detail felt amplified. The way he avoided the hallway closet where my wife kept her documents, the way his eyes lingered on Amara just a second longer than necessary, the way his shoulders relaxed when I told him I'd handle sorting her papers later. We started with harmless things. Clothes, books, old photos. Daniel told stories about my wife, how stubborn she was, how protective, how she always thought 10 steps ahead. Each memory landed differently now, like it was carrying a second meaning just beneath the surface. She trusted you, I said casually, folding one of her sweaters. Daniel nodded too quickly. She had to. There it was again. That edge. Amara sat at the dining table, coloring. I caught her glancing up at us, like she was listening without wanting to be obvious. I smiled at her, and she smiled back, small, tired, but real. I couldn't let this explode in front of her. By noon, Daniel suggested a break. Why don't I take Amara out for ice cream? He said lightly. Give you some quiet. Every muscle in my body screamed no. I forced a breath. This was the moment my wife had been trying to prepare me for. Running wouldn't protect anyone. That's okay, I said. I'll come too. Daniel's smile faltered. Just a flicker. He recovered fast. Of course. I just thought. I'd like to be there, I repeated. The silence that followed was thin and tight. At the ice cream shop, Amara sat between us, swinging her legs. Daniel joked with the cashier, charming as ever. Anyone watching us would have seen a broken family being held together by a loyal friend. But I noticed how Daniel answered questions meant for Amara. How he redirected conversations. How he subtly placed himself between her and strangers. Possessive, not protective. On the walk back, Amara ran ahead, distracted by a stray cat. Daniel slowed his pace until it was just the two of us. She's growing up fast, he said quietly. Yes, I replied. Her mother worried about that. Daniel stopped walking. I turned to face him. She worried about who Amara would trust. His jaw tightened. What are you saying? I went to the basement yesterday, I said calmly. The storage unit. The world seemed to hold its breath. Daniel laughed, short and humorless. I told her that was a bad idea. My heart sank, not because of the admission, but because of how easily it came. So you knew, I said. He exhaled, rubbing his face. She was paranoid, always expecting the worst. She left letters, I said. Warnings. Daniel's eyes flicked toward Amara, then back to me. She was afraid, he said softly. Fear makes people say things they don't mean. Did it make her ask the landlord to hide evidence? I asked. That word, evidence, changed everything. Daniel's voice hardened. You don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me, I said. Slowly. We walked the rest of the way in silence. That night, after Amara went to bed, I opened the remaining letters. One by one, they filled in the gaps I'd never known existed. Years ago, before I met her, my wife had leaned on Daniel during a vulnerable period. He'd helped her, financially, emotionally. Too much. He blurred lines, inserted himself into decisions, convinced her she owed him trust. When Amara was born, it got worse. He thinks he's protecting us, one letter read. But he doesn't see how control. Where's the mask of care? Another said, if anything happens to me, do not let him decide what's best for her. He will say I wanted it. I didn't. My hands shook as I folded the pages. This wasn't a single betrayal. It was a slow occupation of our lives, disguised as loyalty. The next morning, Daniel called. I think we should talk, he said. Just us. Agreed, I replied. Come over. He arrived tense. No coffee this time. No small talk. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same table where my wife used to plan birthdays and homework schedules. She trusted me more than anyone, Daniel said first. You know that. She trusted you, I corrected. Until she didn't. He leaned forward. I did everything for this family. I know, I said. That's the problem. I slid one of the letters across the table. He didn't touch it. She was afraid of you, I continued. Not because you're dangerous, but because you wouldn't let go. You decided what was best. You decided when to step in. You decided you belonged. His face hardened. She needed help, and you needed control, I said quietly. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he stood. If you push me away, you'll regret it. There it was. Not a threat. Something colder. Certainty. I'm her father, I said. I won't outsource that. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. She always chose you, he said. Even when she shouldn't have. When he left, the house felt lighter, and more dangerous at the same time. That afternoon, I sat Amara down. I didn't tell her everything. Just enough. I told her that sometimes people we trust cross lines without realizing it. That it's okay to love someone and still keep distance. That her mother wanted her safe more than anything. She listened carefully, then asked one question. Is Uncle Daniel still coming over? No, I said, not for a while. She nodded. No tears, just acceptance. That night, I returned to the storage unit one last time. In the back drawer of the desk, beneath the letters, was a final envelope, addressed only to me. If you're reading this, she wrote, then you chose to see clearly. I'm proud of you. I sat there for a long time, letting the truth settle, not as a wound, but as a responsibility. Some betrayals aren't loud. They don't arrive with shouting or fists. They come quietly, wearing the face of devotion. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is believe the person who tried to warn you, even after they're gone.